ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be walking you guys through the latest of Hannibal. So spoiler alert before we dive into the mad thick of things, as I will be bearing all in this review. We're going in for the kill. We're doing it for the thrill, and honestly, I couldn't be more enthusiastic about an episode of this series so far. And I'm guessing that a lot of you guys are feeling me since I woke up this morning, at the time of me filming this, the episode aired last night. I woke up this morning with like Hannibal themed wake up texts, like everyone telling me like it's time to film. So I know that a lot of you were really amped up about this episode. I was too. Literal gasps throughout the episode. We could talk in metaphors and saying, oh, I died, I was rolling on the floor. When I say stuff like that, it's legitimate, at least on my part. Not to say it's not for you guys, but I know that last night was that kind of episode. The sort of thing to get you out of your chair, out of your comfort zone, out of your own sanity. I am just completely enamored with the direction that this show has taken and the stops that they have pulled. Just to keep us riveted and guessing as well. I should have known that the fact that I was really starting to enjoy Dr. Chilton was pretty much spelling out his demise, because I know that that's the way that it's worked out with shows like The Walking Dead. Whoever I'm into and who gets all the fun moments, inevitably they're gonna be the one with the axe in their skull or some variation thereof. At any rate, this is a really huge surprise to, I think to all of us. I don't know if anybody else saw this coming, but I personally, I think it's fascinating what the show did, because just as all the characters in the show are trying to comprehend what the Chesapeake Ripper's scheme is, you know, Hannibal's the only one with all the answers, and so are the showrunners of the Hannibal series. So, you know, I dare say if Hannibal's playing God, then I'm pretty sure that Bryan Fuller and company are also in that department, because with Chilton's arguable death, now there are some people who are trying to say that there is some way that he could survive a bullet through the head. That's the only thing I have to say on that subject, and it is a mere noise, because honestly, there's a lot of grandiose parts of the show, things that aren't really supposed to be taken as something serious or that would be likely to happen in real life, but that, are we going into like sci-fi territory? I dare say that Chilton is, well, he is in a happier place right now, courtesy of the Ripper. But yeah, there's some people, and well, I know that Bryan Fuller has said in an interview with TV Guide's website that we shouldn't count Chilton out per se, that he might arise in some other shape or form later on. But we all thought that if the show was going to make it to, say, Silence of the Lambs territory, we were going to have Chilton all high and mighty and getting to have Hannibal under his custody and that whole dynamic, which I'm going to miss that, but I don't know. I think that the show is so ridiculously brilliant because they're not afraid to take these immense creative liberties from the source material, and yet they do it in such an organic way that we don't see it coming, that it shocks us and it delights us, even though we're sad to lose such a fascinating character. It's just the sheer fact that it came as such a shock, that we were focused on one part of the picture just like everybody else was when Will was behind bars, when in fact Hannibal was this entire time has been growing an elaborate garden of death, and essentially in that he fake framed Will in order to get Chilton later on, thus, you know, enabling the resurrection of the bromance with which we fell in love in the first season. So I'm really excited. Like this episode, honestly, it could have been a season finale. I think it's really interesting that they're totally changing up the dynamic for the last 3 episodes. I'm real freaking excited. I really am. So I'm going to kind of break down this review into looking at Hannibal Lecter's design and Will Graham's design. Before I do so, I'm going to touch base with some of the other characters lest I forget some of my thoughts on what's happening with them. So, predictions as far as who else we're going to lose before the season's over? I mean, that's my only concern is like, who's actually coming out of this alive besides, well, the titular character? You know, that's something that's kind of scary to me. Because we lost Beverly, we lost Chilton, we are probably going to be losing both Jack and Alana. It's been said and reiterated by so many people that you're not going to find out until it's too late. So this process of discovering the truth for everyone in the show is basically a process of meeting their maker, okay? So anyways, yeah, I'm a little scared, but I do think that I have a feeling that we're going to lose Alana as well. That was something that was kind of teased at in one of the earlier trailers too. Again, really surprised at the marketing for this season and how they're pretty upfront about who's getting nailed, except for Chilton. That was totally off the radar, and that's what made this episode so incredibly exciting to follow. But as for Alana, I dare say that she and Will Graham, the little fling that they had, is quite a thing of the past. Will Graham is setting his sights, as far as seduction goes, on Hannibal Lecter himself. We got a little love triangle in the mix here, which I will be interested to see. Will Graham, after being liberated, he leaves the asylum, he comes back, gets his dog, so he and Alana have a brief exchange, and they kind of, you know, Alana's like, well, I was wrong about you, and I don't know, and they introduce, you know, Winston and her dog Applesauce, which I dare say they're probably not going to be having tons of play dates after this. But essentially, Alana is blindsiding herself completely and utterly. When her and Hannibal's sexual relationship began, you know, they're kind of laying in bed and discussing funerals and sex and the one thing leading to the other, and then Hannibal counters that with, well, there's many reasons for us to do this. So Alana's kind of letting herself be lost in those many reasons. Pretty much all she wants right now is the ABCD, the abnormally beguiling cannibal ding dong, okay? That's probably the stupidest joke that I've ever made in a vlog, but I'm going to forgive myself. I thought of that in the shower this morning. Well, you know, just great epiphanies. It's been a good morning. And, you know, sometimes the closer you get to the truth, the more difficult it becomes to see. And that is why I fear that Alana is going to be learning the hard way. Yeah, honestly, I don't really see it going any other path other than something absolutely terrifying and shocking for her. Don't really see her getting out of it, unless, of course, Bedelia, who is still looming out there, one of the smartest cookies in the bag of this season, unless she comes in and saves the day. I like having those theories. I keep thinking about those outlying characters, like here's the fray, here's everyone in absolute peril, there's that one person. They could totally, you know? And I love that the way that Bryan Fuller deals with his characters in the show, because with his sort of willingness to entertain, even bringing Chilton back, nobody's ever really gone, despite the fact that we, well, might just lose everybody this season. Next season will be Hannibal and his ghosts, you know. Who you gonna call? Anyways, so we've got Alana in that department. Jack is really in a very fascinating place as he and Will Graham are kind of trying to re-establish this trust. He's still on some level dealing with his guilt, which has now been multiplied not only in his wrongness about Will, which is something that he was already sensing from earlier on in the season, but then with the recovery and discovery of Miriam lasts. And what he tells Will upon freeing him is that he had given up on trying to find them. Will counters that by saying, you didn't need to find me, you just needed to listen to me. And maybe there could even be some relevance to that idea in the case of Miriam as well. So we got a couple of soul siblings going on with Will and Miriam. I'll be interested to see what kind of role she might play in the future. She's still here, and I dare say that she could continue to play a role as things progress, and there's a couple of other outlying characters, like I said, that'll be interesting to see return. I really feel like Bedelia is going to come back. I really, really do. That's just me, though. So I'll talk about, and there's something else I want to say about Jack from the trailer for next week's episode, but I'll kind of refrain from that. So let me go ahead and get into the designs of Hannibal Lecter and of Will Graham. So what we see in this episode is that Will Graham's imprisonment was itself a ruse, a part of Hannibal's grander scheme to nail Frederick Chilton, his spot-on profile match, in a rather ready scapegoat for the Chesapeake Ripper's crimes. Again, it was really exciting to watch that unfold. I was finding myself pretty breathless during the commercial breaks. I was a little blue in the face. Had to kind of re-instruct my lungs in the art of breathing. It was really, really exciting stuff. Quick interruption of myself. I also really like this episode because while there was some grisly violence as there is in every single episode, it was more stylized in this episode with the massacre at Chilton's house and the bodies and how they were laid out. And I guess that was because the location where Brian Fuller and everybody was filming at, they didn't want the extra mess. So they digitally enhanced the blood and stuff. And it was a little easier for me to stomach in that way. I kind of like the more extravagant, out there portions of the show, rather than the stuff that, well, I mean, I like the stuff that gets under my skin too, but at the same time, my dreams that I have are weird enough, and this show is by no means helping me get over that part of my life. But anyways, so, getting back to what's going on with Hannibal Lecter and just kind of looking at what we know now and just how devastatingly wowing this moment is, for lack of a better word. I'm running out of them, I swear. But so we are reminded, above all, that only the show holds all the secrets, just as Hannibal does. So if Hannibal's playing God, like I said, Brian, so is Brian Fuller and his co-conspirators, I gotta say. So we now see that the discovery of Miriam last was intentional, and that Hannibal had not, in fact, planned on plating her at his next gutsy Gatsby bash. I mean, besides, wouldn't the ongoing fear and trauma taint the meat? That's what I'm thinking. But rather, just like the flowers that Hannibal grew for his tree man expose, Miriam was a seed that was carefully sown and matured until ripe for the unleashing. And that Miriam recalls the scent of the flowers as she attempts to give her account is no coincidence, and we now see that the metaphor has come full circle. It's just as Will Graham says when he enters Hannibal's mind and works his way back from the cannibal cabin to Hannibal's living room, where he speaks of the carefully sown seeds and comes to realize just how intricate and intricate and immense Hannibal's scheme truly is. And what he says is, "This is all my design," and he opens his arms wide to just kind of take in the breadth and the grisly grandeur of the artist's masterpiece. So I really enjoyed that scene, and it was exciting to see Will, doing his whole design spiel from outside of the bars. I was really enjoying that moment. I think it was liberating for us as the audience and Will himself. And so rather than posing a devastating liability, Miriam, rendered a canvas for Hannibal's artistic expression, is his secret weapon. That's what's crazy about this whole thing. His brainwashing of Miriam prevents her from remembering the face of the predator, even from the sensation of its fangs. She can't identify anything that Hannibal has not willed her to. She only knows who she was after that predator's bite. you know? So thus, Miriam is haunted and totally overthrown by this faceless facade, an outline which Hannibal trains her to fill in with Chilton when the moment is right. Yes, and so complete is Hannibal's transformation of Miriam that she gazes directly into his face in the interrogation room and cannot match him to that facade. Miriam could not possibly have been more right in her conversation with Will, acknowledging the still unfolding nature of the Ripper's plan, of which they are part. But unlike Will, Miriam is a little more traumatized than curious as to what will transpire. But both of them had their memories altered and withheld from them, and Miriam is only just beginning to access hers, and we'll see if more comes forth. Will is on the other side, and he's staring back at his former self in the form of Miriam in her incredible fragility. What's fascinating about Will is that despite the revenge that he tries to take, we see that he does, in fact, finally find Hannibal interesting enough to keep alive. I mean, he's got questions. And he even wants to be able to get Hannibal to ask some questions too, I think. So despite Chilton's obvious personality differences from Lecter, the investigative team doesn't even have the opportunity to delve into those discrepancies after the massacre at Chilton Manor. Because Hannibal planted this kill switch in Miriam, and she is turned in that perfect moment, killing Hannibal's chosen replacement Ripper in an act of self-reclamation that brings Hannibal's design to stunning completion. So that's Hannibal's design. And again, I was really starting to enjoy Chilton, and he had some hilarious lines in this episode. The one where he's talking about, like, you know, the murder at his house and fitting the profile. All Will Graham did was cough up an ear. I mean, that's it. Seriously. He just had such a fantastic personality, and the actor's portrayal of him he became very likable to me. And I need to stay wary of those likable characters because they are most likely to fly. That's all I gotta say. So, looking at Will Graham's design, okay, this is where the juiciness begins. So what then is his design? No longer a mere pawn in Hannibal's scheme, he realizes the extent of his own fascination with what Hannibal has been cooking up all along. And over the course of this episode, we see Will redefine his relationship with Hannibal yet again, and this time on his own terms, okay? So arguably, it is still a part of Hannibal's plan that he incite Will's curiosity before tasting a scorned friend's bullet in the kitchen where a lot of their conflicts take place. However, Will realizes that he does want to see how this ends. And he wants everyone to see the way that they must. And since he's been freed by the Chesapeake Ripper himself, there's more to this madness than meets the eye, and he can't go without figuring out what that is. I mean, how couldn't Will have been Hannibal's endgame? And if Will ends Hannibal's life, he realizes that he'll never understand the nature of his own freedom, nor will anyone else come face to face with the truth. Killing Hannibal is pretty much just a double-edged sword, which makes the whole thing so perfect. Rather than crying wolf now, Will is going to keep playing the wolf's game while staying up on his own tactics too. Instead of sheltering Chilton when he shows up bloody on the doorstep or sympathizing with the man's desperate plight, Will realizes that he has to let Chilton be exposed as Hannibal intended in order to comprehend Hannibal's design and to continue their relationship, and in that continue to understand himself. He's really in a new place of power. He's pretty much in the best possible area, the best possible circumstances to have some kind of a friendship, mentorship with Hannibal, okay? So it's both unfortunate and understandable that Chilton would show up on Will's doorstep bloody and begging a shower before skipping the country. and trying to reintegrate himself into society from afar. However, in order to see how things end and to create his own design, Will must win the trust of Jack and permit the next atrocity in Hannibal's scheme. Although Chilton, he's not necessarily, or I would say he's far from being a spotless lamb, but you kind of feel bad for him in that moment, because he got screwed up, down, sideways, and to Timbuktu and back. And that's a bad day. That really puts our own personal crises into some kind of perspective. So in allowing for the capture and murder, arguable murder, of Chilton, Will rekindles the old friendship flame with Hannibal, who claimed earlier that he could no longer help Will when in reality he was just getting ready to release him back into the world. So it's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for Will Graham, who is getting himself a fresh groove to accompany his liberation, and his brutally achieved enlightenment too about everything that's transpired. He shows up at Hannibal's doorstep just like old times, except this time he's got his coat elegantly draped over his arm, and a patternless shirt instead of like plaid or striped or anything like that to kind of suggest maybe clarity of thought for the first time that we've seen in this show, which is really exciting. And, you know, he's got his moppy-do exchange for a sleek and sophisticated new hair venture. So both physically and psychologically, he's ready to play the seducer, if I'm not mistaken. And he's also ready to see what else Hannibal has in store for him. So he's kind of trying to play more of the dominant party in this relationship. He lively strolls into the office where he first began to break. And this time he is asking to resume his therapy sessions rather than being forced or coerced or just kind of finding himself in the thick of it. He wants this now, and for his own reasons. If he is to get Hannibal once and for all and beat him at his own game, he's got to keep close with Hannibal and also with Jack, and then kind of let his interactions with Hannibal speak for themselves before Jack. That's kind of what I see, or at least what I'm predicting is going to be going on in the renewal of the Hannibal Will bromance. And, you know, and it helps too that Will is finding a way to enjoy the game that once burned him so badly. He's seen into and even been touched by what we could call the heart of darkness. And rather than retreating, he's returning with an unblinking familiarity. And he's ready with the, you know, he's ready to go with whatever he can possibly do to get Jack to see the light and to see just where Lucifer fell on Earth, you know. But again, it's not even just about getting everyone else to see Hannibal. I think that Will is really showing how he has been touched by Hannibal's darkness and with the decisions that he made while he was still in prison. But now he's a very different man. He's got power, he's very much self-assured in this position, and he's going to attempt to go into this now as the one with the influence and clout. And he's a fisher, you know, he's a fisherman. He's gotta get that fish to bite once more and to see what that's going to lead to. So I'm really excited for where the rest of this season is going. Hugh Dancy be looking fine and fresh. I dare say that Hannibal is going to have to admit to that. Yeah, and the trailer for next week's episode was really interesting as well. Of course, we see that Will and Jack are also renewing their friendship, and Jack seems to be in a place of willingness at last to see what's really going on. Again, he's still getting there. He's still got, you know, his heels dug into the ground as he's pushed forward, but I think very soon he's going to be getting up on his 2 feet, and we are going to be finding ourselves in the midst of the epic battle in which we began the season. So, Leave all your thoughts, reflections, any other gaps that, you know, I inevitably, my allergies, man, they were messing with me. I don't even know what I was saying now. That just, my brain completely reset after that. I'm excited. I really am. And any day now, I'm waiting for that 3rd season renewal, but we'll see. If you guys hear it before me, come knocking on my door, break it down, we will celebrate. I won't mind it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, comment, I will respond whenever I can. Wow, what a my tongue is just running away from me. I better go before more shenanigans ensue. But I love you. You guys are the best. And I will be back before you know it.